Welcome into an all-new episode of Bare Knuckle Fighting main event here on SportsGrid. I know it has been a long time. It was a week off of us not talking to you because of everything going on with the Super Bowl. It was just so loaded out there in Vegas. It was just too much. We had to take a break, so we decided we'd come back here, recap everything with you, and talk about BKFC 57, preview things that are going on, talk about some of the news that drops, talk about some of the things that have been going on that maybe can give us a hint of something going on in the future. And then, of course, as always, we will recap everything that happened with the fighters involved. Look forward to the great card we have coming up this weekend. Another Prospect Series event down in Virginia. But as we talked about with the last one, this year we're getting some names you know at the top. We're getting some fighters that you have seen before. We'll talk to one of those guys later on. Next segment when we talk to the Shark. Zach Kalmus, the heavyweight for the BKFC, is going to be fighting as one of the top fights on the Prospect Series down in Virginia this weekend. We will also, after that, talk to Jomi Escoboza, the Archangel. Of course, the light heavyweight coming off a big win at BKFC 57 over Isaac Doolittle, putting himself firmly in the mix for a title shot. I mean, if you look at the rankings, look at the guys he's beat, it seems like there's only one logical matchup coming up for him, maybe two, but given of what the champion is allegedly chasing, maybe just one guy that he could face for the title. We'll talk to him about that, get his thoughts. He's talked about it many times before. We'll bring it up to him again when we talk to him in a couple segments. And then later on, we're going to talk to Royal Ryan Reber, the bantamweight, who made a big statement win in BKFC 57. Put to the mat 30 seconds in, looked like it was going to be, an overwhelming loss for him against Derek Perez. He marches back, weathers the storm the first two rounds with all the clinch work that was being put on him. Ends up coming out in the third round, starting to get that distance, starting to fight his rage, and then the fourth round just puts it on a gassed out Perez and ends up taking the victory. We'll talk to him about that and where he stands. Does he think he deserves a title shot coming up next in the bantamweight division against a guy like Keith Rockstar Richardson? In fact, you know what? We know he does because he's talked about it. He's talked about one card that he wants it to be a part of, and that is the one that we had announced recently, L.A. That's right. We knew we were going to California with the BKFC this year. We knew it was approved. We had heard it was, sometime in the spring. Now we have a date and we have a venue for April 27th, 2024, in the city that never sleeps, Los Angeles, Lipstick City, always out there. Lots of stuff going on. And now BKFC is going to be going on there. That is a big swing for the BKFC. When you see a state like California opened up, we talked about it at the end of last year, like what places could it be? Do we go to a place like where there's some big fighting like Stockton or, Barstow, where we have, some great fighters there? Do we go to, some of these casino areas out there in the desert? Do we go to some of these other different cities? No. BKFC's not messing around. They're going right to L.A., the biggest, the brightest, taking it to Hollywood for Knuckle Mania 4. That looks awesome. Can't wait to see the fights that will be announced there. As we said, people are already campaigning like Ryan Reber. He wants to be out there. He wants to fight for the title. We'll see if he gets that wish. Also, another fight card that we had announced that has title fights on it. April 6th, just before that, we're going to go back over the pond, over to Milton Keynes in the UK. And we got some big fights on there with the British fighters that we have on the BKFC roster. You got James Lights Out Lilly fighting for the lightweight title, the European lightweight title against Denagalia. You have Danny Christie trying to rebound and reclaim the title there after he lost to Jared Warren against Round. There's going to be 3 title fights for the for the European belts on that card. We look forward to seeing that April 6th. And then, as we said, April 24th out there in LA. I'm sure that one's going to be stacked with title fights as well, but there's going to be a lot of belts out there for grabs come April for the BKFC. Going to be a big month for them. We look forward to those. Look forward to finding out more details about some of those fight cards as well as the roster gets filled out for who is going to be fighting where, when, and for what. But before we can get to see that, we got some great action that we've been seeing these last couple of weeks. As we said, a great fight coming up this weekend down in Virginia on the Prospect Series card, with Grosu and Shavers headlining that one. But there was a title that changed hands, kind of, down in Hollywood, Florida. The other Hollywood, BKFC 57, a couple of weeks ago when we were off the air. We didn't get to recap that one yet, so let's talk about it here. You had, of course, the welterweight title on the line with Luis Babuin Palomino kind of defending his belt because, of course, we had that, a new champion was crowned. Then he was stripped when he went fought for a different organization. So then Palomino, who never technically gave up the belt, was booked against Austin Trout for that title. No doubt Trout, the former glove boxing champion, coming in there trying to become a champion in the BKFC. and he did just that. Did not expect it. I thought, with the experience, with the great fighting that Palomino has had, it was a different beast that he was going to be, that Trout was going to be fighting here in the BKFC world. But he comes out and he lays claim to that title as he beats the pound-for-pound king, Luis Baboon Palomino, by decision. All the judges scored it 49-45 across the board, 4 rounds to 1, in favor of No Doubt Trout, who is now the No Doubt champ in welterweight. And we will see what comes next for him as he is the champion. I mean, if you look at that division, there's a lot of names that they could bring to bear for him. Jake Lindsay, who fought for the title previously, Carlos Trinidad Snake, who has a big win over Elvin Brito, the former champ, who's a little further down those rankings. Rico Franco can maybe get in the mix. There's a bunch of guys that I'm sure are chomping at the bit to get a shot against No Doubt Trout and see if they can take that title away from him and make it a short title reign for the newly crowned champion at welterweight. Where he fights, when he fights, we will see. Of course, the New Mexico native came in to the BKFC fighting in New Mexico. Do they get another Albuquerque card? Is he add to that Dotson card defending his title? Is he part of Knuckle Mania 4, or is it something a little further down the line? We will have to see, as he is now the new champion. And for Luis Baboon Palomino, where does that leave him now? He is still the lightweight champ. Does he just go down and defend that now? Does he try to reclaim that title? I mean, there's plenty of guys who are chomping at the bit for him in lightweight. We know Tony Loco Soto has been, campaigning for that fight over and over again. We will see if he gets that soon, or James Lights Out Lilly is a guy he already beat, so probably not a rematch coming with the fight that he's able. But maybe Bryce Henry has put his stamp on the his record and said that he could be the next guy in line. We'll see where Dave Feldman, Nate Shook, and the BKFC go with that for Luis Palomino. We'll see how long before he can get back in there and defend that lightweight title, if maybe we have an eliminator between Loco Soto and Bryce Henry, or if one of those guys gets the next shot at Baboon, as he is the former welterweight champion and the former pound-for-pound king. That's right. With that loss, no longer a double champion, no longer the pound-for-pound king in the rankings for the BKFC. That has now been handed over to the juggernaut, Lorenzo Hunt, who, of course, is trying to become a 3-division champion. We'll see if he gets that shot at heavyweight or if he has to defend at 185 or 204 then. But now he is now the new pound-for-pound king in the BKFC. So congratulations to him. Sticking with that card, talking about some of the other fights that we had going on. As we said, Bryce Henry, Baby Yaga, get a second-round TKO stoppage over Robbie Problems Peralta, the previously unbeaten fighter in the BKFC, making his claim as one of the top fighters in that division. Another great job by him. Comes at the conclusion of the second round after Peralta had problems with his vision and could not continue, according to the doctor. Fight for Bryce Henry. You also had Brian Duran get another statement win, now improving to 6-0, beats Louis Lopez, the former title contender in that division. So he gets his first biggest win that he has had. And then our man Jogi Escoboza defeats Isaac Doolittle. We'll talk more about that with him later on. But so many great fights on this card. We didn't have time to talk about them all. Make sure you didn't check them out. You go watch it on the BKFC app. We come back and look forward to this weekend. Sure.
Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like, you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
He feels like he's got unfinished business, right? He won the national championship, did what he said he wanted to do going back to Ann Arbor.
And, you know, he coached, I think, with the Raiders as an assistant and then got the job with the Niners and then went to title games, went to Super Bowls, lost to his brother. And I think you're right, unfinished business, go back, try to win a Super Bowl.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Bare Knuckle Fighting main event here on SportsGrid, and we're going to keep going on with this great card we just had in Hollywood, Florida, recapping that a little bit later on the show. But first, we got to look ahead because we got action coming right away back at you this weekend out there in Virginia. We got another Prospect Series card, and one of the guys fighting on that, one of the main fights, one of the guys you know and love every time he steps in the squared circle, is joining us once again before this fight. Zach the Shark Calvin. Zach, thanks so much for joining us. Looking forward to get to watch you fight again this weekend. How are you feeling a couple days out?
Oh, I feel just fantastic.
That's awesome. We're looking forward to watching you get back in there. And your fight against Josh Freeman coming up down in Virginia. I know last year you had a big year. Besides just the fights, you got married, you got hitched up there at the the Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame. We had talked to your man Blake Lacaze about that a couple months back. What's it been like for you? How's married life treating you now? How are things changing here in the Kalmus household?
It's more focused on what I want and what steps that I need to take to get to what I want. I think life is full of opportunities, and these opportunities are all around us. We just need to open our eyes as well as our ears and focus on what's most important. And when you do that, it all becomes crystal clear.
Absolutely does, and hopefully everything's going well with you and the missus. We look forward to maybe seeing her at the fights when they're cheering you on. But you've had a lot of stuff going on. I know we'll talk about the training and about the fight in just a minute. But I saw on your social media, for a guy who lives in the New England area, grew up there, I'm sure with the thrill of a lifetime, you got to meet Pedro Martinez. I saw you hanging out with. Was it the airport you caught up with him? Where did this happen? How did this happen? And I saw you even rocking your own belt there. Is that one of your design?
So the belt that I've been rocking is the BK Fan Club. They made that belt for me after my fight in the Virginias last time when I fought Michael Fernier. They made that as a trophy for my efforts in that fight, Shark Attack belt. And it's actually my logo from my shirt. So it's my original logo since I was younger in the amateurs when I had 23 amateur fights. And this has been my logo for a number of years, since high school almost, right after. And they put that in the belt, so it was super special and custom. As well as they put the Jason mask, and they put the bare knuckle fighting emblem. So that was great, you know what I mean? It's a good way certainly, like, I wanted it made so I could walk around and promote the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship at different venues that I go to, whatever it is, it's going to catch a lot of eyes. So it already achieved its mission accomplished. On the way back from a BKFC show, I'm coming around the corner to meet my wife. She's picking me up at Logan, and it was raining that day. And if anybody's been to the Logan airport, the police are pretty quick to move you along. So I was jogging, and on the moving trackway, I seen Pedro Martinez just do a full 360. I mean, he was looking at me right in my eyes. And I said, "Do you know me?" He said, "Yeah, BKFC." I said, "You know who I am?" He said, "Shark." And I was like, "All right, Pedro, can I get a picture, champ?" He's like, "Of course." And his wife took a picture of me and Pedro, and he's a big fan of what we're doing.
That's awesome. It's always great to hear when another legendary athlete like that can show that respect. I mean, it's one thing that obviously who Pedro Martinez is, but for him to know that as well, know the BKFC, know you, that shows how much the sport is growing. And as you said, you were one of the biggest ambassadors of it. No matter where you are, whether you're fighting or at fights or just anywhere, you're out there repping the brand. So keep up the good work. We always appreciate that. Now I saw as you're getting ready for this fight, you've been training a little differently. I mean, you said just a lot of heaviness on the sparring. That's just all you're really focusing on. I saw even the picture of it. I mean, look at this. It looks like you're coming out of a fight, not getting ready for one. Looks like you already, fought like it's the end of the night there. So how's the training going? Why the change? Why the focus on just sparring? And how do you think that's getting you ready for this fight this weekend?
Well, that's kind of always how I've trained. I really like to fight. I don't just like it; I love it. And fighting for me is just a lifestyle. I'm a fighter, so I don't have to. I don't need a gym. I don't need a sparring partner. I don't need any equipment to train. All I need to do is wake up. That's the unique thing with me is I've always had a good training camp, and I've always fought with respect to the game and put in a lot of hard work because my work ethic is second to none.
Yeah, we've seen that. That's all you need is an opponent. Even sometimes you don't even need that. I saw a great video you out on the ice there skating around. Looks like you're training maybe for a second career. Are you getting ready to go be an NHL enforcer? I know you're a big Thornberry Trashers fan. Is that something that we got in the works? Maybe talk to some EHL teams, go back to juniors or something. We getting ready for some brawls on the ice too?
Interesting enough, I have some different conversations going on with ice hockey enforcer leagues. Like Ice Wars. Mr. Charlie Nama, who's coming out to my fight in Virginia's. He's coming out to support me. He's the president and CEO of Ice Wars. And I'm an old hockey enforcer. I love knocking people out. And the best place for me to do it is on skates. So if maybe possibly Ice Wars will even become a feeder for BKFC as we're seeing like a lot of great hockey enforcers come over to bare knuckle fighting. So I think that I definitely have not necessarily a second career or second wind or second life because I'm only 32. I just more or less see it as something to diversify my profile as an athlete. I would still take boxing matches. I have a contract signed to fight at Worcester Palladium next month on the 25th. I'm fighting in Virginia on the 16th, bare knuckle. So I think it's just more of a way to put eyes on BKFC being my number one focus is bare knuckle fighting. Everything else I do is more or less to put eyes on my sport that I love so much.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you maybe doing that. That'd be great to, watch you doing these different things, and you're always repping no matter where you are. So keep up the great work. But of course, now, like you said, BKFC is a focus, and right now your focus is the 16th against Freeman. What are you looking for in this fight? What do you know about him? I mean, he has, a glove boxing background, but not a great record there. Now he's making his BKFC debut. What are you expecting to happen this weekend against him?
Well, one thing I'm not expecting is to be expecting. I've fought enough fights to know that if you go in there expecting too much or thinking it's going to go one way, then it's going to go the exact opposite way. I go in with an open mind and know that it's a fight. They were two fighting men going out there to fight, and anything could happen, especially in a fist fight. I was winning my last fight by a landslide going into the second round, and I got caught by an overhand hook type punch by Fernier, and it knocked out one of my tooth. It was impacted. It had to come out when I got home. But regardless, all I'm trying to say, I don't care about that. It's an honor when you're north of Boston. But you can't go in expecting anything. It's a bare knuckle fight. If you go in expecting anything, you're gonna lose. So all I can expect is that I'll do a good job because I train, I fight, and I win. That's how simple I keep it.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you get in there and seeing what you can do against Freeman. Always entertaining, no matter win, lose, or draw. That is the Shark, Zach Kalman. It's got to be also a big honor for you to be one of the headliners on this Prospect Series card, being a guy who has come up through the ranks, a guy who did the tryouts, guy who's worked his way up from there, being one of those guys kind of leading the way now on these new Prospect Series cards. It's got to be great for you. We look forward to watching you fight this weekend in Virginia. The Shark, Zach Kalman, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck this weekend, my man.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on, sir.
Always our pleasure. That is the Shark. You can watch him the 16th down in Virginia. Grocery Shavers, main event of that one. We'll be talking about that later on as well.
Caravan came back. They did have a couple of transfers here. The reality is UConn is every bit as talented and dangerous as they were 1 year ago.
If there's a guy, Joe Ranieri, that for one game could take a bunch of cast-offs and steal a game, his name's Eric Spoelstra.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Team that has a great point guard, a great big that can block shots, a team that can play defense, and seniors that can put the ball in the hole. That's who you bet on. You don't bet on freshmen. You don't bet on teams that don't play defense. There you go.
I mean, you got to run the guy over to call a foul in a tie game in that kind of a spot. That was a bad job by those refs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I'm sort of starting to figure out where these Canadian guys play well, bro. Not Hawaii, not California. Give me a Canadian in Ohio, Kev. Give me a Canadian in Michigan. Give me a Canadian at the Waste Management.
Good old Charlie Hoffman, the representative of Waste Management, played the best tournament of his life in 8 years and lost in a playoff to the Canadian. It turned out to be like a wicked tournament. Shout out to Nick Taylor, gave BC's finest.
Sports Rage Late Night. Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage Late
This sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Bare Knuckle Fighting main event here on Sports. Got a great card we had down in Hollywood, Florida for BKFC 57. A lot of great fights. A new champion in the welterweight division. Talked about all that earlier, but of course we also talked about a great fight between the two men that we thought were going to maybe steal this as a fight of the night, but it really was kind of a little bit more one-sided than we thought. Jomi Escoboza, the Archangel, coming through and getting the big win over Isaac Doolittle. Third round KO. Jomi, congratulations on the win. How are you feeling a couple weeks out after that fight?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm feeling great. I'm ready to fight again. Right now, right here and there. We right back in camp right away. So just excited. To go for the belt now.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see that coming up. We'll talk about that a little later. What's coming up in the future? Let's look back at the fight quickly, though. I mean, Doolittle came in pretty aggressive. Came in, kind of almost bum rushing you, the head down a little bit, trying to move him to throw you off. But were you expecting him to come out as aggressive to close that distance as he did? Or did that catch you off guard a little bit? And, you expect him to come maybe a little bit more slowly and picking his different angles to get in there?
So I expected him to come out very aggressive, and high output. I just had to make sure that I controlled the distance and maintain output to him, which I did. And landed more. Well, the jab definitely started the problems for him a lot. It definitely started opening things up. And then whenever we got into the clinch, I always made sure that I either wrapped up his arms or I was the more active person in the clinch because he's very powerful. He has short arms and could generate a lot of power within a short distance. So I had to maintain very very lockdown type of style and basically I'll grapple the grappler and then make sure I don't get hit. He caught me one time around the ear area and right then and there I was just thinking like, yo, I cannot let this guy hit me or touch me in the head because he has a lot of power. So just maintain the distance, and I wasn't too surprised because I was prepared for it, but I just was making sure that nothing can be done in the short distance.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of movement coming in, almost recklessly, the way that he kind of like just put his head down and was swinging back and forth. I thought that he was prime set up for that uppercut if you could time it. But did that movement throw you off at first, trying to find your rhythm and catch at him there, or was that something that you were just biding your time until you were ready for the right shots that started to come in the second and third round?
His head movement did, kind of made me a little hesitant just because I didn't want him to come in and, throw an overhand or just catch me with one of those wild punches. So it did get me a little bit hesitant in the beginning. And then, I had to start turning it up, especially like after I heard the boos in the crowd because, he kept, grappling and stuff. I was just like, all right, yeah, I got to turn it up. I got to make sure, I put up for everybody.
And obviously the jab, as you said, was a big part of your plan, big work in your, favor, being the much bigger fighter in this one. You started to find its home there, towards the second, the beginning of the third. What point did you know that you were kind of in control of that fight? Was it, going into that third when you started to find your range and your rhythm? Was it, after that clinch right before you ended up knocking out? When did you know, like, okay, now I got this, I got my timing, I got my space, and this is over soon?
To be honest, it was in the first round within the first 3 jabs that I landed. By the time my hand retracted my face, I seen the red line of the cut forming and I seen like blood dripping from it. It wasn't like landing on his face or it wasn't like smearing or anything. So it was just like, going straight to the mat. And once I seen that, I already knew it was the beginning of the end. To in the distance, not let him get any, any powerful, flush shots. And then I knew I was a little hesitant in the first 2 rounds and my, chewing me out in between the rounds. So like going into the third round, I knew I couldn't come back, back to the corner with my coach, like letting me know everything that I was doing wrong. And like, I knew I had to throw the uppercut because that's another thing that we, implemented a lot in our game plan. And I didn't do it in the first 2 rounds. So, my coach was very, very like mad at me and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, I gotta turn it up this round.
He did for sure. Then you, as we saw the video earlier, you got him in the clinch, started landing some shots, and right off that clinch, landed some big shots from the outside, put him down, and that was it. You win the fight. You continue to, prove your record. You only blemish in the BKFC, of course, that Jared Warren fight early on. And I know that you are, we talked to you before the fight. You're looking for that fight again. And now I'm sure after the win, it's only cemented in your mind that, you want Jared Warren again. You want to get that off your record. I mean, there's no one else really in the rankings ahead of you besides him and the champ. So have you had conversations with Dave Feldman already about that? Or you have that in their ear? What's going on right now as you try to campaign for that fight?
Yeah, so that Lorenzo's vacating, to go up and to fight at heavyweight and get that 3C, become the first 3C champ. And everybody after the fight, has been telling me that the only thing that makes sense is for you to rematch Warren for the vacant belt. This fight was, basically a title limit to Warren for the vacant belt. And, I won, of course, so it makes a perfect rematch. I caused a lot of damage in that last fight with him. People say that I got robbed, but I only threw one technique, which was a single jab. And imagine if I use all my techniques, imagine the type of damage I'm going to cause. So the fans are going to be very, very happy with what happens in this rematch.
Well, hopefully we get to see that. We're looking forward to that, possibly coming down the pipe. I mean, if you look at, do you feel like you're getting a little disrespected? I mean, because if you look at the rankings still, obviously Lorenzo's up top of that belt until he vacates. Mundell's no longer in that division. He hasn't fought there in a long time. Then there's Warren, Danny Cruz, who Warren beat, Isaac Doolittle, who you just beat, listed at third. They don't even have you listed there. Why do you feel like they're not giving you the love with the great record you've amassed here with bare knuckle fighting?
It's a little bit of the politics with the former promotion that I was with. I was with BYB first. I became a champion. Well, I became first 185-pound champion in the sport of bare knuckle. So I made that early history. I crossed over to BKFC to, win my second belt in the weight class so I could kind of make myself closer to what in boxing they call undisputed in one weight class. Because, BKFC and BYB are the two biggest promotions right now that are worthy enough to, chase the belts for, I think, in this sport, because, it's still early. So, I crossed over and, we're here trying to make history, become the first two promotional champ in a weight class. Yeah, man. So I don't know, man. I just go out there and win, try to get the most brutal wins, put on a show for the fans, and then eventually they have to give me the ranking, 9-1. Like after I get, this next fight, I win the vacant belt, right? 10-1. Like, it's gonna look very good, for my name in the sport of bare knuckle boxing.
For sure. Hopefully we could put that together. Is there, I mean, obviously it didn't look like you took too much damage in that fight. You said you're right back in camp. Is there a date that you have in mind? Is there any of these cards that they've announced? Is it, are you handling them to get Knucklemania 4, get you on there out in LA? What's your time frame that you're looking at? Now, obviously you're very busy on the side as well, with your day job, selling $1 million homes. That has to take a lot of time too. So what are you looking at for a time frame of when you'd like to be back in the squared circle?
As soon as possible, to be honest. That Knucklemania card in California sounds amazing. I've been wanting to do like a Big Bear Mountain training camp, and that's like the perfect card to do it out there, in Los Angeles. And then, anything possible, to be honest. Just, I'm ready. I'm back in camp. We're ready for the next one. And we basically know who the next opponent is. We're just ready to unleash full power and all the weapons.
Absolutely. And, before we let you go, I also noticed on the social media, I had a big photo dump. It was a couple months ago, but we didn't get to ask you about it before the fight. I had a nice trip down to Peru, towards the end of last year. What was that like for you to go visit there, see the sights? And, maybe I know Palomino was talking a long time about trying to get a fight down there with the BKFC for the last couple of years. I mean, how awesome would it be to go back down there and throw down hands as well?
Yeah, man. Peru is an amazing country. They have the part of the seven wonders of the world. They have the Amazon, they have desert, they have mountains, You know, they have ancient ruins that, you know, the architecture is just amazing. How did they make that back in the day? So I'm definitely planning a trip this year to go back and do the big hikes. And my girlfriend's Peruvian, her family's, you know, from over there. So we visited her family and stuff like that. We did the Machu Picchu because, you know, you have to visit Machu Picchu when you go there and experience the altitude and everything. I definitely want to go out there and do the altitude training, you know, just to open up the lungs. But yeah, man, it's an amazing experience. Definitely a bucket list type of trip. And I'm definitely going back for the big hikes this year. And the food, the gastronomy is amazing.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to put that on the bucket list one day to check out, hopefully with the wife myself. Sounds awesome. The Archangel, Jomi Escoboz, congratulations on your great win over Doolittle, and hopefully we get to see you and Warren for the title coming up soon. Thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
That was Jomi Escoboza. You know him, you love him. He's put on some great performances here in the BKFC. We'll see if Jared Warner's next for him. I mean, the bigger question is going to be what's next for Isaac Doolittle right now. I mean, he had the loss to Richmond for the title, then had the draw against Boswick in a brutal fight, now losing to Jomi. Where does this guy who was once the top of the division stand? We'll see, but we know where Escoboza is heading, and that should be up that ranking soon. When we come back, we'll talk to Ryan Reber about his great impact on that same card.
A great point guard, a great big that can block shots, a team that can play defense, and seniors that can put the ball in the hole. That's who you bet on. You don't bet on freshmen. You don't bet on teams that don't play defense. There you go.
I mean, you got to run the guy over to call a foul in a tie game in that kind of a spot. That was a bad job by those refs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Another reason why they won the deadline is the number is 7. Those are the tradable first-round picks the New York Knicks have. And that could be something to look out for in the future. Does New York back it up and throw a ton of picks to a team like Dallas, maybe in the future, to get Luka Doncic?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I'm sort of starting to figure out where these Canadian guys play well, bro. Not Hawaii, not California. Give me a Canadian in Ohio, Kev. Give me a Canadian in Michigan. Give me a Canadian at the Waste Management.
Good old Charlie Hoffman, the representative of Waste Management, played the best tournament of his life in the 8 years and lost in a playoff to the Canadian. It turned out to be like a wicked tournament. Shout out to Nick Taylor, gave BC's finest.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Bare Knuckle Fighting main event here on SportsGrid. We got to go back to that great card we had at Hollywood, Florida a couple weeks ago that we were talking about earlier in the show, because you know when we have some great fights like that, we got to bring in those involved. We got to talk to some of the fighters, the broadcasters, find out what was going on with them, what they're thinking, how they're feeling. And one of the guys who put on a great performance, epic comeback in that fight, Ryan Reber, having a great fight to stay undefeated now in the BKFC. 4th round stoppage over Derek Perez. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us. What a great fight. I mean, it was, right off the jump, it was pretty crazy. He just pretty much bum rushed you, got you in the clinch, and about 30 seconds in, you went down. What were you thinking early on when he was coming at you wild like that?
We ain't drive all the way down here for this man. I mean, I didn't really expect him. Well, let's rewind a little bit. I did expect him to be tough. I wasn't expecting quite that, and it gave me a chance to take the knee, regather myself, because I'd rather take the knee, gather myself, than take more punishment with a bare knuckle, man. And I did that, and I had about 7-8 seconds to reevaluate my whole life and my whole existence, and I did just that and popped back up and continued to fight my ass off like Dave had asked for us. And the rest was history, man. You guys seen what happened.
You absolutely did, and it was a great performance. You regathered yourself. It was still, tough first 2 rounds. A lot of clinch work, a lot of those short punches he was landing. I mean, it was over 100 punches that he was getting in those first 2 rounds. What was your corner saying to you as you were going in there, back and forth after those first rounds? Were they telling you to get out of the clinch? Were they just, telling you to ride the storm out? What was the message you were getting from your guys?
They were trying to give me specific numbers and punches. Obviously the jabs 1, the straights 2, hooks 3, uppercuts 4, and he kept saying 4 is open, 4 is open. But I had so much going on mentally. I'm thinking 4 is a damn hook, and I'm like, whoa. I'm like, what do you, So I was kind of getting confused in the corner up until the fourth quarter, of course, when we went viral and he just dug in my rear end about getting out there and doing it. He was, he's we ain't drive all the way down here for this. You better open up, boy. You better tighten up, man. And honestly, I had already planned on doing it because I watched his body language, man, and it was saying he was out of gas, man. And so instead of chancing it and maybe getting caught in another exchange, I waited, I picked my shots, and I waited for the opening, and luckily I didn't have to hit a hit all by itself when I seen it, man. And from there I just handled business. Tough guy, man. Hats off to him, bro. Like I obviously Keith hit him with 1 punch and knocked him down and pretty much out of there, man. And I'm knocking teeth out and he's still moving forward, bro. So I'm not really too sure what went on there, man. But yeah, hats off to him, man. What a tough SOB he was, bro. I thought Travis was tough, which Travis is tough. Thank God Travis isn't 5'10" like Derek is, because Travis has got some real good boxing skills and he's got a really, really sharp ring IQ, especially for bare knuckle. And a lot of people wouldn't see that unless they're in there with him. So that was my toughest fight to date. But now, obviously, this one, this was a pretty tough one for me, man. And I honestly made it a little tougher than I needed to make it, especially in those first rounds. But to be honest with you guys, man, I don't know why. I just didn't really work clinch with a taller guy. I worked mostly staying on the outside and angles and stuff. And, I had to adjust, just like I told Sean Wheelock and Chris Lights Out Light in the beginning. I said, they asked me, what are you going to do, man? How are you going to do it? And really, I can't answer those questions because I don't know what Derek is going to give me the opportunity to do, And, unfortunately for him, he came out the same way he did with A Sample, you know what I mean? And A Sample was another coming up undefeated 135-pound fighter that, couldn't handle his pressure, man. And, they were gassing him up like he was supposed to be very, very good, man. So it's going to be very interesting to see Derek Perez, continue to climb the rankings, man, because there's not a lot of people that I feel like could handle that pressure, man. It's going to either do one of two things, man. It's going to bust your pipes or it's going to form a diamond. And I've been in this game for 20 plus years, man, and I'm right at the tail end of it, man. So I got maybe 4 years left in this thing, man. And, I want to give it my all. And where I sit and where I stand right now is in a very good position in the company, in the rankings. And, I look to stay on the top, man, for as long as I can. And, that means training extra hard and, going out and branching out with other people. That's what I'll have to do, man. But I have a very good thing, at Battle Zone Boxing with my coaches. Obviously, I train with Nick Ruiz, who is Dave Mundell's personal trainer, so they get me right and different aspects. And then of course I got my my management team all in, and they've been a breath of fresh air throughout this whole thing. They've helped me sell tickets, they helped me with all my gear, they helped me with anything and everything to make my life easier as a fighter, man. And hats off to those guys, man. They really, Vic, man, and Sam and the whole team, they've really taken care of me, man. And I'm just super, I'm in a really good position. I really am, man. So the only person that could really beat me or do away with all this is me, and I had a lot of shit going into the fight, but everybody does, man. Everybody's got some sort of heartache or some sort of backdrop, whether it's an injury or it's family shit or whatever it may be, man. Everybody's got some sort of issue, man. So that could either make you or break you as well, man. And obviously, right in the beginning, it kind of flustered me a little bit to where I had to regather myself, but I will always do that, man. If I'm not on the canvas snoring or something's not completely shattered in my face, bro, we're gonna fight, man. You're gonna see me fight, man, and I'm gonna do that every single time. That's what you guys are gonna see when I come out there. So like I've told many people, man, I forget about winning and I forget about losing. The only thing I care about is going out there and is emptying my cup and being formless and shapeless, just like water, just like Bruce said. And, looking to use what I've been training this whole time, so I don't put any extra pressure on myself. There was a lot of extra pressure on all of the fighters at that fight. Cause, obviously Dave came out in the back and was like, we got Saudi princes here, we got actresses, we got actors, we got, we completely sold the place out. You guys go out there and fight your ass off. You know what I mean? So everybody's looking for a bonus and everybody's looking for, a piece of the cake, and, everybody's looking for the next big highlight real win, man. So, everybody that steps onto that canvas is coming for blood, man. And that's exactly what Derek Press was coming for, man. And, he's got a lot of experience in this too, man. And it's kind of ironic to come into the game with very little pro experience and to be 5-0. And I think it shows a lot about me, myself, my training, and who I surround myself around, obviously. And I only thing I could do is look forward to the future, man. I live in the now, but I look forward to the future, man, because I feel like it's bright. It's bright for the company. David Feldman's doing wonderful things over there. They just, the company's growing and expanding, and I'm honestly so happy to be a part of it, man, because I feel like it's like UFC, the beginning UFC days where you had all those pioneers, the Ken Shamrocks, the Hoist Gracies.
Right.
We're gonna be those guys in the future. When they're making video games and they're making TV shows and they're making movies about this kind of stuff, man, because this sport ain't going nowhere. And I mean, anybody who watches it or dabbles into it, it's just like, oh my God, I had no idea that this thing was going on like this. Like, and people are constantly out promoting me, promoting the BKFC, putting new people onto it. And, it's a fast growing sport, man. And I'm just excited to be a part of it.
Sure. Well, absolutely, it keeps growing, and we'll talk about a little bit more about that in just a second. But did you feel, when, I mean, obviously we talked about the volume of the punches in the first two rounds. Did you feel in the third you started to tire? It seemed to be where you really were able to keep him at distance, start to pick him apart with those jabs. Then a couple big rights in that third round, like 30 seconds in and 30 seconds left. You got some big rights that kind of shook him. Did you start to feel him slow down and know that you were in control going into that fourth round?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was a perfect time for the gladiator speech from my coach. You know what I mean? Because I was going in there and rocking that out anyway. I knew in my heart from his body language through that second and third round that he wasn't going to be able to keep that same pace, man. And I just turned it up on him. You know what I mean? And yeah, I did feel in my heart that he was bogging down, and he felt it too. He exerted all of his energy, and I knew that him cutting down from a bigger weight was going to play a bigger factor in that, man. With these guys, they're going to be awfully surprised, man, when they can't get me out of there quick. And they're like, shit, okay, and you better have a second game plan. You know what I mean? If you don't have if you got one game plan, you're screwed in this game. You got to have multiple game plans, man. If one doesn't work, okay, the boxing aspect didn't work, we're gonna have to rough them up. If the roughing them up aspect didn't work, we're gonna have to work the clinch. The clinch don't work, we're gonna have to work angles. If the angles don't work, we're gonna have to go back to trying to, whatever it is, man. And I can only go based upon that, upon my opponent. You know what I mean? And I do study my opponents, and I didn't do a whole lot of studying on. I lost you for a minute. I don't know why, but it is what it is, man. I had to go in there and physically adjust, man, and that's just my game plan sometimes, man. I go in there and work with what you give me. And obviously, like I said, I didn't work a whole lot of clinch this fight, and that was shame on me, man, because that's exactly what he did, man. And it kind of threw me into like a deer in the headlights type thing, man. But just like life, man, life beat me down a lot harder. There's a lot of things in this lifetime that was intended to break me that just couldn't break me, man. And I just pushed through it and prevailed and got on the top once again, man. So it's no different in this fight game, man. It really isn't, man. You go in there and it's very hard to hit that on switch sometimes, especially with a guy like Derek Perez, who's a genuine, good-hearted dude. We had no animosity going in, and it's almost like, we have this conversation and then we're like, hey, bro, we're just going to go outside and fist fight. It's like, okay. So you got to turn it on and turn it off, man. And sometimes it takes me a couple seconds to turn it on, man. You know what I mean? But I'm there to turn it on and perform, man. And like I said before, forget about winning, forget about losing, just going out there and showcasing what I know I can do. And if I showcase what I know I can do, I'm going to be a very hard guy to beat. So, I'm saying that, man.
All that is true, absolutely, for sure. Ryan Reber, you had an incredible performance, great comeback win over Perez. Thanks so much for joining us. I know you talked about how you want to be on that LA card, Knucklemania 4 in a couple months out there when they open up California. Hopefully we get that. I mean, when I look at the standings, I mean, it's Richardson and then Barnett, who lost to Richardson, Jared Grant, who lost back-to-back, and then you at number 3. So it seems to make complete sense to put you two together, whether it's sooner or out there in LA. We hope to see you again soon. Great performance, heal up, and we look forward to seeing you fight for the BKFC once again and see if you can make it 6-0.
I appreciate you guys. Hell yeah, let's do it, baby.
That was Royal Ryan Reber coming off a great win over Derek Perez, as he said. Tough early on, kind of overwhelmed in the clinch, but then found his groove, picked him apart, wore him down, and dominated him for the knockout win in the 4th round. A great performance by him. We'll see if that earns him a title shot. We'll close things out when we come up next here on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Over $200 million in the state of New York in sports betting, half of that going to the state. all thumbs up, I guess, across the board here, right?
Yeah, New York just continues to be the standard bearer for the industry. People are betting a ton on NFL. We've still got March Madness coming up. This is really the prime time for the U.S. sports calendar with the NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, and then college basketball, NBA, NHL in full swing.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
He feels like he's got unfinished business, right? He won the national championship, did what he said he wanted to do going back to Ann Arbor.
And, he coached, I think, with the Raiders as an assistant and then got the job with the Niners and then went to title games, went to Super Bowls, lost to his brother. And I think you're right, unfinished business, go back, try to win a Super Bowl.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes, it's every time.
Game time decisions.
Is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Bare Knuckle Fighting main event here on SportsGrid as we wrap up things on this episode. Looking forward to another great set of fights this weekend. Of course, make sure you check out the Prospect Series. The 16th, 8 o'clock Eastern, they start. You can watch them on the app. You can watch them on Fubo. You can watch them all over as the BKFC is exploding against, in combat sports. It's getting bigger and bigger every week, every year. And as we said, headline there by Grossu and Shavers. You got our man, the Shark, Zach Kalmas coming on that one against Freeman. Terrell versus Van Camp. A bunch of great fights on that card. Make sure you check that out this weekend. We'll be recapping that next week. Thanks so much to Zach Kalmas for joining us as he gets ready for that fight and gets ready to see what he can do if he get back-to-back wins in the BKFC. Thanks to, of course, light heavyweight Jomi Escoboza, the Archangel, who joined us after his big win over Isaac Doolittle to maybe set up a title shot in that division. It's really hard to keep a guy like that out with the statement wins he has put together, or maybe at least gets a Warren rematch, if not for the title, maybe just to try to get that red mark off his ledger. And then, of course, bantamweight Royal Ryan Reber. Great win for him over Derek Perez. Enjoyed talking to him about what was going through his mind as he got knocked down pretty early and had to regather himself and get himself back together and weather the storm before coming back to get the win and putting himself in title picture talk as well. Great talk to all those guys. Looking forward to those fights this weekend. Also looking forward to what's to come with the BKFC because, as we know, they're always moving and shaking. We talked about the LA fight. But there's some big meetings that Dave Feldman had over the last couple of weeks. Putting posts up of Dave Feldman out in Vegas, meeting with Dana White. I heard an interview of him talking about Dana, talking about how got some tips from him. I was a great guy, and talk about maybe there's things in the future. Wonder what can come of that collab. And also Dave Feldman also hanging out with some of the people at Rizin. So I'm meeting with some of the biggest MMA promotions in the world, the UFC and Rizin. We'll see what could possibly be down the line for BKFC. Is it, maybe some more crossover fights with some of the talent from those organizations? Is it some dual cards where they, do things on the same night together? Is it business partnerships and expansion? There's a lot of things that can come of those meetings with the big names that he's been hanging out with. But Dave Feldman traveling the globe, making new friends. We'll see what we get coming from that down the line. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week here on SportsGrid.